Welcome. I'm Connie Serlo Freeman, and I am the Director of Arts and Culture and Seniors here at the JCC. And just a few housekeeping details. We are going to be recording the program, so just to let you know about that. And I'd like to ask you to please stay muted during the program so we limit any extraneous noise. And we would also suggest that you put your view onto gallery view, and that's the way we're going to proceed for the evening. We will have questions and answers, time for questions and answers, time permitting, I should say. And you can either put your question in the chat or you can raise your hand, and when we catch our eye, we'll ask you to unmute and you can ask your question in person. Okay, so let me just see here. Okay, I think everybody's here. All righty. So first of all, I have to thank my committee, who literally makes everything we do possible. And we have several of them are on the call tonight. So it's wonderful to see you and thank you in person. The JCC is, and Stanford is a very diverse community. And we created JTALKS in order to showcase highly accomplished individuals from our community whose extraordinary achievements have brightened our daily lives in a wide variety of disciplines, from science and technology to the arts and philanthropy. Certainly, Fran Pastore is one of these pioneers, and we are so pleased to welcome her to be our featured JTALKS speaker this evening. Clearly, economic empowerment of women has never been more relevant than it is today. Considering what is going on in our world, locally, nationally, and globally, we can all agree that women's economic equality is a societal imperative. When women are empowered financially, they have voices and options. Businesses flourish, families and communities thrive. Fran Pastore, founder and CEO of the Women's Business Development Council, will give us a history lesson on the evolution of women's entrepreneurship in the United States. Fran will share her journey from being a first-generation college student, launching one of the most successful women's business organizations in the country, from groundbreaking legislation passed in 1988 to her personal journey as an entrepreneur with the launch of WBTC in 1997, the national and global movement of women entrepreneurs today. This educational and, I guarantee you, inspirational talk will resonate with you. Domestically, for over 2 decades, Fran has been instrumental in the passage of legislation benefiting women entrepreneurs, providing numerous testimonies before the U.S. Congress. She has served on the National Women's Business Council, an independent source of counsel to the President, Congress, and the United States Small Business Administration. Most recently, Fran was appointed to serve as Vice Chair of the State of Connecticut Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Authority Board of Directors. We're also going to hear about Fran's connection to Stanford's Jewish community and the role it played in helping her achieve her goals. Fran is married to Steve Muller, and they have 2 daughters, Hillary and Alana. It's been a pleasure to get to know her wonderful mother-in-law, Victoria Muller, who is a member of our senior program and one of the key people that just keep the connections with everyone. And now I want to introduce you to our moderator, Myrna Sessa. Myrna is the consummate volunteer, has been an active member of Stanford's Jewish community for 44 years, volunteering for Temple Sinai, Hadassah, UJF, Shoki JFS, and of course the JCC. She also serves on the Stanford Board of Ethics and volunteers for the Back to School Shop. She's the founder and principal of HR Innovations, LLC, a human resources consulting firm, which offers professional HR consulting and expertise to small and mid-sized businesses. She founded the firm in 1988, having been an HR professional since 1982. On a personal note, Myrna is a dear friend, and I was one of her original boosters when she was thinking about going out on her own. So I take some pride in seeing how successful she is. And we met here at the JCC at a Hadassah meeting over 36 years ago. Myrna is married to George and has 2 adult children, Melanie and Jeremy. And we just realized when we got on the call this evening that Fran and Myrna and I have a combination of, we are all from Italian and Jewish backgrounds and have family members that way. So, and Italian Jewish is always a great combination, if I do say so myself. And so now, Fran, I would like you to come on up and.
Thank you. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying the afternoon sunshine that we finally got today. So thank you so much for having me. Connie, thanks for inviting me. And Myrna, I'm really looking forward to our talk. And as a woman-owned business yourself, I'm especially happy that you are moderating today. And we were fortunate enough to get to know each other some years back through Rob and Frederick. So I'm really happy that we're doing this together tonight. And I have a few friends, I think, joining us this evening. So thank you so much for being here. And my daughter Hillary is on also. So thanks, everyone. So what I thought I would do is share with you, as Connie read in my bio, just a little history lesson on the genesis of the Women's Business Development Council in Connecticut, why it got started, how it got started, what we do, and bring you up to date to right now what we're doing today, because today was one of the highlights of my career. My team and I distributed 44 checks totaling $450,000 to women business owners throughout the state who are in vulnerable communities in our state, and who and from every county in the state, by the way. So I'll bring you all the way up from 1988 to very, very much what's happening right now today in our state for women or women-owned businesses. So we're going to start. We're going to start back in the mid-'80s when a group of trailblazing women, much like the women in our community in Stamford who helped me found the Women's Business Development Council in 1997. These women back in 1986 were they were called a Committee of 200, and it's an organization that still exists today. And they were trying to determine the impact of women-owned businesses on our national economy. And what they found was that there was absolutely no data on women-owned businesses. There was a lot of data on businesses owned and operated by guys, but really nothing on women-owned businesses. So these trailblazing women commissioned Congress to conduct a study on what impact women entrepreneurs were having on our economy. And the study came back, and the study revealed that women were starting businesses at twice the rate of their male counterparts, but lacked the management and marketing and legal skills to launch, and not only launch, but to sustain businesses. And at that time, the study found that women-owned businesses were starting, again, at twice the rate of their male counterparts. So why wasn't there any information? With that, legislation was passed in 1988. It's called the Women-Owned Business Act of 1988, or it's also known as HR 5050, which intended to level the playing field, if you will. And that legislation did four things. The very first thing that it did was it allowed women to access capital in their own name for commercial purposes without having a male co-signer. So if you can imagine, that was 33 years ago, women could not access capital for commercial purposes without having a male co-signer, the age of 16 years or older, co-sign that loan for them. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with women-owned businesses right here in town, coffee shops, nail salons, frame and print shops. Imagine those businesses are around for 10 or 20 years and they want to expand, and it's 1987. And they went to the bank that they always did business with, and they had great credit. Their financial statements were perfect. They couldn't get a loan without having a male co-signer. That was not a very long time ago. The second thing that this legislation did was it mandated that census ask questions the United States Census, gather and collect information on women-owned businesses, something that it hadn't been doing. Third thing that it did was it established the National Women's Business Council, which Connie mentioned that I served on under President Obama. And the purpose of the National Women's Business Council was to guide and advise and provide research to the President and Congress of the Small Business Administration on issues affecting women entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses. And the last thing that it did was it established a very little known office in the United States government called the Office of Women's Business Ownership. And the purpose of the Office of Women's Business Ownership was to provide grant funds to every state in the country so that there would be an educational organization to help women overcome the obstacles that were identified in that study. Fast forward, it is 1995. I find myself a single, unemployed mother with two delightful little girls who I wanted to teach to become economically self-reliant and independent. And I am trying to figure out how I'm going to accomplish that. I needed to get a job. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of girlfriends, my posse, all of them, 90% of them I met at the JCC, who were not only gainfully employed, but very successful in their own right, either in the corporate sector or having their own business. And they rallied around me. I was, a young woman with two little girls getting divorced. I had very, very limited financial resources. And with their help, I learned that Connecticut was the only state in the country that did not have access to one of those federal grants to have an educational organization in our state. And with that, at that moment in time, my personal passion around women's economic equality, social justice, economic justice, just kind of all came together with a need in our community. And so between 1995 and 1997, I brought together women and a few great men from not only Stanford, but from around our state, and got folks to rally around the idea that Connecticut really needed this resource, and there were federal funds available to achieve that goal. And so it took us about 2 years to form a corporation, become a nonprofit organization, and with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from a lot of women, most of them from Stanford, many of them, as I said, I met through the Jewish community, helped launch the Women's Business Development Council. Fast forward, we are a 24-year-old organization. Last month, we celebrated our 24th anniversary. We're excited and looking forward to next year for our 25th anniversary. What we do is we help women launch and scale small businesses by providing what's called in our field is micro enterprise development. In our field, what we do is technical assistance. Technical assistance means we are providing mentoring, coaching, training, business counseling in the areas of business. We start with the most basic things, which is really a financial analysis of how much money do you need to earn? How many widgets do you need to sell to earn that money? And is there a need in the community for that, right? Because that's really what an entrepreneur does. And hopefully it works out for everyone. Their passion aligns with a need in the community or a need in a certain space. And so when we first got started, the federal funds that we received were and still are actually fairly nominal. It's a $125,000 grant we started with. Our budget is now $3.2 million. We have expanded from our one office in Stamford to New Haven and New London. We serve women from all socioeconomic backgrounds from every corner of the state of Connecticut, every one of the 169 cities and towns. The majority of our clients are highly educated women. 70% of the women that come to us have a bachelor's degree. About 40% of them are minorities, and those different minority categories that they fall into represent the demographics of the state of Connecticut as well. And about 40% of our clients fall into what would be the low to moderate income category. So broad spectrum of clients, broad spectrum of businesses. In Connecticut, we have about 125,000 women-owned businesses employing millions of people, hundreds of people, and generating millions of dollars in sales. So normally we would see about 800 women in any given year. And the majority of those women are coming to us with an already established business, typically established from 3 to 5 years. That represents about, I would say, 40% of our clientele. About 30% of our clientele are what we would say emerging businesses. So they've been in business less than 3 years. They've got some revenue that they're generating, but they're looking to access new markets, perhaps diversify their product line. And the rest of our clients are in the startup stage. That has really shifted in the 24 years that we've been in business. Initially, when we got ourselves started, the majority of our clients were in the startup stages. So we've seen a complete reversal of that, because as we've grown, the complexion of our clients has also changed and also grown. Connecticut ranks about 25th in the number of women-owned businesses in their state, and that's kind of by state population and volume of businesses started. And let's see, areas where our clients are focused. Majority of our clients are the service-based businesses. We have a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, a lot of psychiatrists. We have a lot of alternative healthcare practitioners. We're starting to see an increase in food-based business, tremendous increase in food-based business. 40% of the farms in Connecticut are owned and operated by women. A lot of businesses we're starting to see in homeopathic remedies, a lot of healthcare, elder care, and healthcare for elderly. So it's broad spectrum. We also have the largest, one of our clients is the largest construction company in the state, owned by a woman. As I shared with you earlier, when I first got started, the reason for the catalyst behind these grants that we distributed today, and it's something we're so proud of, access to capital continues to be the single biggest barrier for women, not only in the state, not only in our country, but around the globe. 90% of women-owned businesses in the world generate less than $1 million in revenue a year. In the United States and in Connecticut, it takes a woman an average of 4 attempts to secure a traditional bank loan. When I was on the the National Women's Business Council, we actually conducted a study. Same business plan, same education. The only thing that was different on the bank loan application was the gender. The male did not have to go back 4 times. So that law that I told you about in 1988 that was passed, there is still a bias against women where capital is concerned. And the reason for that, we believe, is that the majority of people sitting at the other end of the table, the bankers, don't look like we do. I'm sure you've all heard the expression, if she can see it, she can be it. And so really encouraging more young women to get involved in math, science, accounting, engineering is really going to help shift that dynamic. But that's a whole other conversation that we can have. So focusing on our work, our clients come to us because they're looking to do one of 2 things, or maybe both. Diversify their product line, diversify their access to markets, and actually 3 things, and they're looking for capital. And so what happened when the pandemic broke out, WBDC became really a beacon for not just women-owned businesses in our state. I shared with you that about 800, we usually see about 800 clients a year. In the first 5 months of COVID, we saw 6,500 clients. What did we do? I mentioned also that our budget started at $125,000 and is now $3.2 million. Our budget increased by 60% during COVID, and our staff increased by 40%. What happened was corporations, the federal government and the state saw the work that we were doing for the last 23 years and knew that people needed our help, businesses owned by not just women, but men as well, people needed our help to access the stimulus money that was coming from Washington, D.C. and also out of Hartford, Connecticut. We literally helped thousands of people, men and women, fill out those PPP applications. So many of the people that came to us didn't have a CPA, they didn't have a bookkeeper, they didn't have access to a CFO. So they were trying to keep their business alive while, it was shut down, right? They didn't have the revenue to support their family, their children weren't in childcare anymore. It was a fiasco by any measure. And so we were literally conducting Zoom calls with people one-on-one to help walk them through that PPP application. What we learned in the fall, when the federal government told us who got the PPP loans, was that in Connecticut, there were 60,000 PPP loans given out. Of those, 80% of them went to businesses owned by white people. And of those, that 80%, 78% went to men. So the majority of those loans did not hit the most vulnerable people in the most vulnerable communities, and certainly didn't reach the women that we serve. And so I brought this to the attention of the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor and the Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development. And I made a recommendation that Connecticut needed to do more. We needed to do more for the people who didn't have bookkeepers and didn't have CPAs and didn't have a CFO, because they simply couldn't fill out the application fast enough. And they simply didn't have the documentation in place. Not everybody has QuickBooks. Not everybody has a banking relationship. Not everyone has uses a software to manage their business. So the Lieutenant Governor challenged us, whatever you raise in private money, we will match dollar for dollar up to $1 million. So we created something called the Equity Match Grant Program. And the Equity Match Grant Program was intended to hit what I would call a triple bottom line. We received money from the federal government to hire people to evaluate applications for people that needed capital. We then went to corporations and we said, hey, the federal government wants to help us help businesses survive this pandemic and thrive after it. Here's our concept. Would you provide us with funds so that we can put money on the street in the hands of women entrepreneurs? Every single financial institution that is licensed to do business in this state said yes, along with private philanthropists who focus on economic and social justice and economic equality and women's issues, and a lot of other corporations as well, like Travelers Insurance, for example, who have been steadfast employers in the state, have been doing business here for centuries, really wanted to support this initiative. So within 2 months, we raised almost $700,000 that the state has now matched. And that is how one of the ways that our budget grew this year. And so we received 210 applications for funding without any advertising. And today we awarded 40, I think it was 44 grants in about $450,000, up to $10,000. The grants had to be specifically for, the grants are not for COVID relief. So that means that they can't be used for general operating. They are intended for businesses that have been in business and have come up with an innovative or creative idea to pivot their business, to expand their product line, diversify their product line, or access new markets. So one client, just to share with you, a woman in Bridgeport, she makes soaps, body scrubs. She insisted that she didn't need social media because 90% of her business came from trade shows. So you can imagine her business was completely decimated when we had the shutdown. We convinced her to start a website, to launch a website, to allow for online ordering, and to finally start using social media. And her business, by July, her sales increased by 189%. So what we're doing, in addition to providing technical assistance, is really providing the confidence and the encouragement and the support that our clients need. And again, they're women from all socioeconomic backgrounds. And the single biggest missing ingredient is the support and the encouragement that goes along with the technical assistance that we're offering. These women are creating jobs in our community. They are hiring consultants. They are hiring vendors. Someone who opens up a business downtown or perhaps a home-based business, they're hiring local contractors and doing business with other businesses in the community. 80% of women-owned businesses keep their money, reinvest their money back into their community. I'm really proud of the work that we do. I'm very passionate about the work that we do. Today was a really exciting day. Women who have been turned down for funding from all other sources, or maybe didn't qualify for some reason or another. Today was a big day. They have the chance to do something different that is going to hopefully help them thrive post-pandemic. So thank you for allowing me to share that story with me. The JCC has been a very big part of my life for as long as I've been living in Stamford, and the life of my two daughters, and my mother-in-law, Victoria, just made, I guess she's been there, Connie, for 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years now, and just really loves it and just really cares about the community so much. And thank you for letting me share my story.
Thank you, Fran. That was incredibly inspiring, especially for me as a women-owned business owner, or whatever, my firm. And I love to hear what you say. I can't believe it. I was just telling somebody today that it was not that long ago that women couldn't get money in their own names. And I didn't know what the date was. I didn't remember. And then you talked about it. I want to ask you a few questions, and also anybody in the group can put questions in chat, or if you want to show us your picture, you can raise your hand. I don't know if there's another way to do it, but to let me know if you have a question. So as a single parent, you mentioned that the JCC was instrumental. How did you deal with that, with 2 little girls traveling? How did that all happen with you being alone with 2 little kids and starting an incredible business that you did? How did that all come to be? You're on mute.
Well, first and foremost, my girls were my inspiration, because I wanted them to have a different experience than I had growing up. I came from a very provincial Italian family, where, the women served and the men ate, and the women cleaned up and the men ate or watched TV. And my mom didn't work. And I wanted my daughters to have a different experience. And so when I moved to Stamford, the first thing I did was join the JCC, because I was a very active swimmer at the time. And that's where I met all of these incredible people, all these wonderful women. And when I got divorced, the JCC was just a lifeline for me. I mean, just a lifeline. The after school program, the bus from bicultural, driving the kids to the JCC, the after school activities, the daycare for my younger daughter. It would have been, I really truly don't know how I would have done it without the Jewish community, and in particular without the JCC. It was hard. Those were really, really hard times. I had very limited financial resources. My kids were on scholarship. I don't even know who was in charge of, the back office at the time, but I always had a payment plan. And It was tough. It was really tough times, but honestly, the JCC was really like the place to go. You know, I just knew that my kids were cared for, active, and engaged. And it just gave me incredible peace of mind.
There was a question on the chat, which you answered.
I did. There is a list of women-owned businesses in the state. We have a campaign right now to get as many women-owned businesses in the state active on our website. It's a free service that we offer. We have a membership that's free, and then we have a paid membership as well. But the directory, I believe the directory is free of charge, and there are a lot of Stamford-based businesses on it.
I'll have to get myself on that.
Yes, you do, Myrna, absolutely.
You talked about your upbringing and your family. What you talked in your speech about women's economic equality and women and social justice. What made you personally, was it your background? Was it the fact that you were a single mom? What made you so passionate about these topics?
Well, again, you know, coming from a very traditional Italian family where I was just not traditional. My mom is the youngest of 16, so you can imagine all the cousins I have. I'm the only one that went to college.
Wow.
So it was really, really important to me to be able to have the experience that I was having with, you know, you're asking me, sorry, I think I'm getting a little off track.
Where did your passion come from for these?
I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to be dependent on anybody. I didn't mind. A friend of mine said it really well. Her mother told her, you know, don't be dependent. You can depend on a man, but don't be dependent on him. And so it was just, that really resonated with me. And I guess that's the best way that I can describe it. I wanted to have my own economic self-reliance. I wanted to rely on me. That was really important to me. And also, you know, because of that upbringing, I wasn't accustomed to handling money, being conscious of money. That was something that I became so passionate about because I didn't want my girls to have that same experience. So I hope that answers the question, but I just think it's really important to teach children, especially young women, about money and being economically self-reliant and independent at a very early age.
I'm so with you. Somebody once told me on an interview that I was painfully independent. I said, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
What have you learned that surprised you as you move forward in your career?
Oh, how much women want to help women. How much women want to help, how much people want to help other people. You know, WBDC is not a basic needs organization. We're not a food bank. We're not a shelter. And we're not a social justice organization, right? We're a business organization. And it amazes me every time I speak to someone and tell them about the work that we do, how quickly they want to get involved and get engaged and be able to contribute their knowledge, including you, Myrna, you know, to contribute your knowledge and help us make decisions in your, you know, area of expertise. And that is surprising to me because oftentimes people are so busy, maybe they're too tired. If they're a CPA at the end of the day, they really don't want to be sharing that information, but it's remarkable how people really step up to help others, especially for this particular cause, because you may not see immediate results. You know, it takes some business a really long time to make progress. So most of the volunteers, we have about 200 volunteers. We were honoring them all throughout the week of April. It was National Volunteer Month. And men and women from all walks of life that want to share their knowledge and expertise with our clients.
one of our questions asked, appears to be, are your daughters involved with WBDC?
Well, both my daughters were involved with WBDC from day one. Stuffing envelopes and, putting stamps on mailers. And of course, all that has changed. My older daughter frequently gives me legal advice, and my younger daughter is a social worker, and she actually works part-time as my scheduler. So she squeezes in a few hours a week to help me manage my calendar.
That's a big job.
Mm.
What is one part of your daily routine that young people should consider when working toward a successful career?
What can I say about that? I don't really have a routine. I really don't. I am, not one of those people who gets, I like to think I get up, I light a candle, I pour my coffee, I pour my water, I sit down, I meditate. No, I don't. I do like the candle though. I kind of travel to the beat of my own drum. I wish I was more disciplined, but then if I was, I don't know what I don't know what I would do. So I'm very extemporaneous, but I'm also very passionate. And I really feel that the best advice I can give to any young person is to find that thing that you're passionate about. And I know it's a cliche, but if you do find something that you're passionate about, you won't think of it as work. I think that today a lot of young people are very, very consumed with overthinking, over planning. I can't really say that was ever me. I feel as though I've been on this path that kind of just followed, and I was just lucky enough that I never expected to be here 24 years later, I can tell you that.
Somebody wrote, you are saying that, I want to read it to everybody. You are always such an inspiration. I'm so glad to be part of this Zoom call. Is WBDC virtual now, or are you back in the office? Are you still affiliated with the SBA? And do you have training opportunities? I don't know if that means training train your clients, and trainers. I'm guessing it's both. But,
hi, Susan.
Susan's waving, yes.
Yeah. So yes, thank you so much for joining, Susan. We go back a really long time. And yes, we are still affiliated with the Small Business Administration. We have 3 grants. That's one that supports each one of our 3 offices. We are totally virtual. We're not back in the office. The team got together today for the first time since August.
Wow.
To distribute these checks, which was really exciting. So not only was it great to see the clients receive the checks, but it was really exciting to be with my colleagues. And I'm not sure what you mean by training opportunities, but email me. I'll put my email in the chat just to make sure everyone has.
We have another question. What advice do you have for women who often feel dismissed or ignored as they work to continue advancing personally and professionally?
So the first thing I'll say is that a big part of the work that I do personally at WBDC, a big part of my job is advocacy. And I think that we have to do a better job as women advocating for ourselves and gathering allies around us. One of the ways to do that is to become engaged. If you're with a big company, a lot of big companies have employee resource groups where women gather and share best practices, and they bring in speakers and tell you how to negotiate and advocate for yourself, or how to talk to your boss about XYZ. What I would say is that we need to use our voices a lot more and be open and transparent and communicate that to people in positions of power. And I think, Myrna, you can actually add to that because that's an area of your expertise as well. But for me, I can share an experience that was unpleasant that I had on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange almost 40 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to have an advocate make sure that I went to my boss, and when my boss did nothing about it, went to his boss, and when his boss did nothing, and you hear me saying his, right?
Mhm.
And finally, when I reached the highest level, that trader on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange who was sexually harassing me on a regular basis was fined several $1,000s, which was a lot of money back in the 80s. But I'm saying that because I had someone that was actually my husband, going to be my husband at the time, who was an ardent feminist himself. And when I shared with him my experience, he insisted that I take that to the highest court in the land, if you will, right? And I think that's something that is so important to share, to communicate, and to make yourself heard. Because if you feel dismissed, you need to say it, because you just can't go around feeling dismissed. We have to change our attitude if we want someone else to change theirs. Myrna, did you want to add to that?
It is, obviously I deal with that a lot, and it is very, very difficult sometimes for people to speak up, because even it's 2021 and people still get demoted and treated differently at work because they're women or fired. And I'm very, very passionate like you about speaking up. And even a longtime colleague of mine who does kind of what I do, but more on the CFO world, he would refer me to people, and he would say, oh, you got to talk to my favorite HR gal, Myrna. And I would say, and I kind of said, use my company name. I have a real live company. And then he kept doing it. And I finally had a chat with him, and I said, I love you very much. You're really helpful in referrals, but please don't call me a gal. And please say Myrna Sessa, the founder of HR Innovations, LLC.
Right.
And he absolutely didn't mean anything derogatory, but it's just how he grew up, I guess, his culture.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I'll just say on that point is that it's really up to us, each individual woman, to do the right thing for ourselves, so that the generation that comes after us, we're setting an example for them. Because we can't just complain about it. We need to do something about it. So that's my advice. And I'm happy to, if anybody wants to have a personal chat about that, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to have a conversation.
You and I could chat forever.
Yeah.
About some of these things. Do you recall the hardest professional decision you ever had to make? And what was it, and how did it turn out?
Yeah. Firing people is never fun. And those are the most painful things. But I have to say, I've learned to deal with it in a different way, because most people are operating under the best of intentions always. And they may not know that their behavior is not a cultural fit, or that their performance isn't, no matter how many times you ask, and no matter how many times you document it, right, Myrna? Document. Somebody just might not know that, they might not get it. So usually it ends up being for the best for everyone. And hopefully that person, I always try to take really good care of the people that I have to terminate, so that they have a chance to kind of get themselves on their feet. And I always try to telegraph the punch, so that, again, communicating, managing expectations. So I come to find that usually people end up in a better place.
I see that too. Is there somebody whose career has inspired you along the way? And if so, who and why?
Well, I'd have to say, women that I admire, Eleanor Roosevelt, Rosa DeLauro, our own Rosa DeLauro. I adore her and I love her and her passion, another powerful Italian woman. You know, I just love her passion. I love her purple hair and I just love how she gets things done. More importantly, for both of those women, they were laser focused. They are, well, Rosa is, and Eleanor was laser focused on social and economic justice. And Rosa is the reason that whether you agree with the current political climate or not, Rosa is the reason why childcare is in the American Rescue Plan Act. And we should all, if we believe that childcare is part of the infrastructure of this country, which I believe it is, we all, as citizens of the state, owe her a debt of gratitude for any mother and father for that piece of legislation getting into this package. And hopefully it will become the law of the land. Equal pay also will become the law of the land. So
I hope so. This is a two-part question. What is, if you can recall, the most valuable piece of advice you ever received? And what key piece of advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
The key piece of advice that I received was to treat everyone from the doorman or woman to the CEO with the same respect, everyone. And that is something that I have really tried to practice my entire life. I mean, my mom told me that growing up. And I just always, I try my best to practice that all the time. What piece of advice I would give to an entrepreneur is this. We see a lot of people that come into our office and they are extremely passionate about what they want to do or what they are doing. And oftentimes they are really fabulous in their craft, whether they are a hairstylist, whether they are an art framer, whether they are an artist. But oftentimes what we find is that there's tunnel vision. And sometimes you're so passionate that you cannot see the forest through the trees. And oftentimes entrepreneurs are their own worst enemy. And they're their own worst enemy because they don't allow themselves to be vulnerable and hear and accept and receive information. And that is a very big obstacle if you want to succeed, right? Because you need to be able to, you know, when you're in business, you need to hear a lot of things that you should hear, that you want to hear, that you need to hear. And you need to be able to hear it. You don't have to act on it, but you need to be vulnerable and open yourself up because that's where possibilities happen. That's where things are possible.
I'll take that advice. What keeps you awake at night? Other than coffee or whatever.
Well, what keeps me awake at night is I'm really able to sleep a lot better now because Susan knows from the past. You asked me this 5 years ago, I would have said making payroll, cash flow for any business. But right now I feel as though what keeps me awake at night is the survival of our main streets and making sure that we don't lose the very fabric of our culture in our state and in our country by not doing the right thing for the businesses that support our local communities. And, you know, I know that this can be a very politically charged conversation about, you know, handouts and things like that. We have to look at what the downside of not supporting these businesses means for our country and for our state. I feel that we're really, really lucky here right now in this place and time in Connecticut. And I'm hoping that we leverage that. So what keeps me up at night is making sure that we seize this moment so that both economic and social justice happens for the people it needs to happen for, because that just equals the whole. And it's a good time. It's a great time. The state is really in such a great place right now. So that's what I would say, is making sure that we make all the right decisions to support small businesses.
You always inspire me, always.
Oh, thank you.
And after coming from some of the WBDC lunches and brunches, I've come back into my own business and made changes. So
Really, thank you.
definitely.
We have a
Anyway,
great team. We have a great team.
you do. You really do. Anyway, thank you. And I'm going to turn it back to our hostess, Miss Connie Freeman, and turn myself on mute, and you should come off of mute, Connie.
Very good. You were awesome, Fran. What can I say? Absolutely.
Thank you.
And just a few things. And also, of course, Myrna, who is, my dearest friend, and I knew she would be fantastic. I have to tell you that when we were working on the very first time that our committee met, and was talking about JTALKS, your name was like right at the top of the list of somebody we have to get, probably because Myrna was there. And at that time, I'd also developed a relationship with Victoria. So it was just, it was meant to be.
Thank you.
And it's wonderful to hear how you felt supported by the Jewish community and the JCC in particular. And it's wonderful to hear, because I was one of the people on the committee at the time that a kids place, created Kids Place. So it's always wonderful to hear, and it's still going strong, and it's so nice to know people benefited so directly. And also your comment about social and economic justice, which is kind of my rallying cry around a lot of the things that I do at the JCC, the things I do at Hadassah, and just in life in general. And it's wonderful to hear that that's a guiding principle for you. So it's, and to hear that you're so optimistic about Connecticut in particular, I'm sure it makes everybody on the call feel very good.
Thanks.
So,
yeah. I feel like we have very, very important leadership right now in place in our state. And I think that it's a transformational time for us. And I hope that everyone in the whole state, as many people as possible, are aware of that and are motivated to be part of that.